Gary and Anna, yeah, great talk. A lot of excellent points. What I want to ask you about is we have groups over here, and I think they're in other parts of the world as well, who promote system change rather than individual change. There's such groups as Extinction Rebellion, then we had Animal Rebellion, they've now become Animal Rising. Animal Rising have got a thing about not encouraging people to become vegan, not mentioning veganism because they think that kind of somehow does more good, more harm than good. So what's your opinion on this kind of system change rather than individual change approach?
I would make my non-academic comments first. This is just complete crazy. This is like saying we're going to abandon the idea of trying to teach, persuade, educate on veganism, and we're going to watch Prime Minister's Question Time this morning and think this bunch is going to change the world in the way that I would like to do it. I feel as if that's so crazy. I don't even know how to engage it. I mean, legislation, project schemes or whatever are only put in place to reflect the lowest level of consensus that you can get on anything. Why do we think people are going to make a leap to veganism and very strong environmental positions if their constituents don't believe it themselves and haven't been told that it's the right thing or good for them or economically sensible? Where do they get this idea that it would work?
Yeah, you can't systems change, particularly when the system changes you're talking about would have profound impacts on individual lives. Require great personal change. You're not going to be able to get the system change. I mean, the idea that you're going to get a group of people who aren't vegan changing the system in a way that will result in veganism is just, I mean, I don't even understand it. I don't understand it conceptually. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, we saw it as lawyers. You can tinker around the edges. Sometimes you can come up with a creative argument and make the law do something it really wasn't intended to do. And that's a wonderful feeling. But they're minor victories. The law reflects the stuff that we can all agree on, and it's not going to ever be revolutionary, is it?
No.
It's not designed to be revolutionary. So we gave up doing animal cases. I mean, it's not doing anything. It's just reinforcing the status quo. And yes, there will be the worst violators of that framework, and that's for criminal prosecutions to deal with. But politicians aren't going to do this for us unless we force them. And if you can't name 10 vegans on both of your hands, then how are we going to get constituent pressure onto these people? It really is crazy.
I don't even understand it. When Extinction Rebellion started, I actually knew somebody who was involved with it at the sort of the higher level. And I was very excited because I thought it was going to be, I thought that the concept of it, of disruption with a very strong ideological message, I thought, well, let's see what happens. That could, as long as it's nonviolent, let's see where it goes. And then very, very quickly, they backed off of the vegan issue. I think in the beginning, there was some feeling, at least I was made to believe that there was some desire to move it in but then they started with all the regeneration and blah, 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 blah. And Gail, whatever, the Bradbrook was not even a vegan. Roger Hallam was busy, bad-mouthing veganism and saying about, and then Animal Rebellion comes along and Animal Rebellion starts talking about systems change. And I'm thinking, is this this is the postmodern generation, and they don't like the big, they don't want to talk about the big economic things like Marxism, or they don't want to talk about they don't want to talk about system change on that level. They want to talk about system change on some level that assumes the legitimacy of the system, that the system as it exists right now can be changed in some way. I mean, think about this. If you think about how much money animal agriculture contributes, to the grand scheme, I mean, animal agriculture is a huge business. So how are we going to system change? I mean, particularly when the people who are supposedly going to make the system change are not willing to change it in their own lives. I mean, what are we talking about here? I think in many ways this is much the same. It's a flip side. It's a slightly more radical sounding, but not radical in reality, side of the let's make animal exploitation more humane, because if we do that, we'll change the system, because the lights will go on and people will see that we need to move even further. And the answer is, it ain't worked in the animal welfare area. It's not going to work in the quote systems change area. And I think that it's very convenient for these groups to say what we want is system change, but we don't want change we're not promoting change on an individual level. And the thing is, that's like saying, you're in 1917 and, people don't want a Bolshevik revolution, but we're going to change and we're going to have a Bolshevik revolution. The answer is, if they don't want one, you ain't going to have one. It's just that simple, unless you impose it. And so, I do think it, if you imposed veganism on the public, you want to see people in the streets, it'd be a lot more than Stop Oil or whatever the hell, you would see a significant reaction. So I don't know, Ronnie.
It's also stepping back, I think, from either knowingly or not, from the individual responsibility.
Yeah.
We're waiting for someone else to do it for us.
Yeah.
And we're not willing to do it in our own lives.
Yeah. I mean,
so if we're not having starting out from, a strong core of conviction and education in your own life, and then moving out, you can't just sit there and wait for someone to do it for you.
I mean, the most you'll get is, you might get, something happened in the United States a couple of weeks ago, which got quite a bit of coverage, but missed the point. Legislation doesn't work. So what happened was, some people came up with a referendum. HSUS came up with a referendum in California to require that pigs be given more space and blah, 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 blah. And this got challenged in the Supreme Court on the grounds that it was affecting interstate commerce, because it meant that people who were raising pigs in Iowa couldn't sell the pork in California because the pork didn't comply with the referendum requirements. And the Supreme Court said, no, you can uphold it. It doesn't violate the Commerce Clause. You can uphold it. And the animal people were getting orgasmal about this. If you look at and the referendum actually went further than legislation normally does. But what did it do? It basically, as a compromise, allowed United Egg producers to determine how much space hens were going to have. United Egg producers are setting the standards for hens. And you can still use a farrowing crate for pigs right before they give birth, and during the entire nursing period, you can use farrowing crates. The only change that it made was that it required that gestation crates be larger than they are now. This is the best you're going to get. The California referendum is the best you're going to get, because it wasn't strictly legislation. It wasn't dependent on the legislature. It was something that people, supported. And yet it was incredibly useless. And ultimately, I think probably will increase net suffering, because it makes people feel that things are, that animal products are being produced in a much more humane way in California, and so therefore that this is a good thing. And the answer is no, it's not. But we got to put heads together, Ronnie. Come on, we've got a lot of years. Yeah, a lot of years. We got to get some of these young people and sort of try to figure this out, and how we take it to the next level. And it ain't systems change. Go ahead.
I think it's a particular shame with regard to animal rising, because they do some very good non-violent direct actions, So you've got the actions that are good, particularly actions they take with regard to, they've done a lot of stuff with regard to the dairy industry. There's got a lot of publicity, and they have now started talking about the exploitation of animals and not just about the climate crisis. So that's a good move in the right direction. But what they fail to do in their messaging is encourage people as individuals to go vegan. And I think this is a huge wasted opportunity. They've got the media attention, that they've got a platform where they could do that, and yet they don't.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. It makes no sense, and it will not result in any sort of significant change. I mean, some people will see it and, and whatnot. And then if they're told, well, what should I do in response to this? Well, pressure your legislator to stop this or something. If you don't tell them to go vegan, if you don't tell them you've got to withdraw from the system, you have to stop participating. What change do you have?
Well, they'll say, well, I'm only buying from RSPCA, stamped with the stamp of approval from them. What else do you want from me? When we haven't told them that is not enough and that it's useless. That's a fairy tale we're selling.